Good afternoon and welcome to our professional development lesson for today. The team and I have put together for you a day that will incorporate some time for you to get to try some new strategies we're going to talk about. It'll also give you some time to work with your PLT to refine maybe some of the lessons that we have moving forward as well with the things that we're going to be talking about. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the team that I worked with and appreciate all the effort and time they've put together for this lesson, and so they will take over in a short bit. But to begin with, as you know, we are talking about data and assessment and how we use those today. Data and assessment oftentimes we use in isolation of one another, but we really want to be purposeful about how we are using our data and how it impacts our instruction in the classroom and how it impacts what we learn with kids and how we learn with kids. So going back to some things that we have done really well this year, we've done a very nice job of digging in and working on parts of that workshop model that we are trying to refine. We've also looked at some data that shows that in the areas of English and writing expression, our students are really still struggling. So with that being said, we want to look at that data and those assessments that we've taken and received back and formulate some professional development for you all today around those. So what we have surmised is that we are doing a really nice job of those mini lessons and setting up the objectives, and students know what they should be learning, but what we're finding is that we're not seeing that they're understanding that learning, or they're not being able to write and express themselves the way that we are needing to do. We find that sometimes when we have been in a model just like Lucy Calkins or a workshop model for a couple years, we need to refresh ourselves and kind of look at where the areas of improvement are. And that's what is going to take place today. So first off, I want to say I really appreciate all of your time. The things we're going to talk about today, it's not that anyone has done anything wrong. What we're doing is we're trying to get better at our craft always. Just like I'm going to get better today, I hope that you all will get better today as well. And so we're going to have some open and honest conversations. And that's what a professional development is about. We'll give you time to work with your PLT later and to try some of these new things, but we just need to review the parts of the workshop model that we are struggling with. Today's specific focus is going to look at that teaching point as whenever it's the student work time. So it's what are students doing during that student work time, and then what are we as instructors doing during that student work time. Because if we are not following through in the very specific things that we need to be doing during that work time, then we are missing some opportunities for learning for our students. So remember, before we break out and the coaches come in and we have some of our teacher leaders come up and work through us on some of those examples, that what the data is showing us is that the kids are not fully being able to comprehend their expression in writing. And so we need to look at what areas, very specifically looking at that data to see what are the areas that we are not meeting that criteria in. And how we can also do that is how are we conferring with students? So remember that when we're in that, after we've reached that mini lesson point and we're in that student work time, students should have some choice within that work time. That in order for students to really write well, we really have to model well, and they have to see what good writing looks like. So to make sure that the things and the examples that they have are going to be something that they can, one, make a connection with, and two, that they have choice in. But then also we need to make sure that during that conferring, we are setting very clear goals and that they understand what they're going to be doing during that time, and that we are giving very specific feedback. So we are going to practice those functions today, looking at how are we conferring with students and then making sure that they're clear on the objectives of what they're working through in that workshop model. Hoping we can facilitate some of that, breaking out into small groups, that we will be refining some of our craft where it comes to that, looking at some sentence stems, looking at ideas for challenged students, but also how are we keeping track of students meeting their goals and those expectations. Teachers are the ones that have to be in charge of the data, guys. I can only stand up here so long and tell you what data and assessment should and how it should impact your instruction. But what we really have to do is look at data and assessment and relate it to what we're doing in the classroom and help it refine what we're doing in the classroom, because we can't have the two things siloed. If we're going to do that, then we're not going to grow. And so just as if, you ask me things of me, I'm going to ask where we learned this together, because we've seen where our students are having struggles, but we've also seen where Workshop Model can take kids much further than they ever have before. We just have to make sure that we have everything in place that we need to incorporate the things and facilitate the opportunities that they will need to be successful as well. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and break out into some smaller groups. We're going to run a carousel today. So those carousels will all be led by some learning coaches, some other people we have brought in that are experts, if you would, in that part of the student work time. And we are really going to hone in the next, 3 half-hour sessions on those 3 different parts: on conferring, on making sure that students have good models before they work in, but then also making sure that we are tracking our data well as teachers when they are setting those goals with us. So once again, I appreciate everything you're going to give to us today, and then we'll break back in together as a whole group after we've done our hour and a half of carousels. Again, if you have any questions, we will go ahead and take those separately, but otherwise we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll go ahead and get started.